Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez got a surprise visit from Bill Nye the Science Guy while at South by Southwest.
Greetings! Hey! Science! Yeah! Oh, wow. Wow, greetings, everyone.
Oh, my goodness, this is amazing.
Greetings. This is so nice. It's good to see you all. I can't take selfies with everyone. Keep in mind, here's what I think's going on. I'll ask the question in two ways. As you may know, I'm a white guy. I belong to two unions.
Wow.
But I think the problem on both sides is fear.
Yep.
People are afraid, people of my ancestry are afraid of having to pay for everything when as immigrants come into this country. People who come in, the people who work at the diner in Alabama are afraid to try to ask for what is reasonable. Mm-hmm. So do you have a plan to work with people in Congress that are afraid? And I think that's what's going on with many of the conservatives, especially when it comes to climate change. Mm-hmm. People are just afraid of what will happen if we try to make these big changes. Mm-hmm. And I remind everyone, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8 of the U.S. Constitution refers to the progress of science and useful arts. Mm-hmm. So when we address climate change, we're going to have clean water, access to the internet, and renewable electricity for everyone on Earth. Let's go!
Yes!
Thank you.
Okay, so before she goes into her answer, which is a great answer, I do want to, I had to stop after Bill Nye said all of this, and he said it's going to bring renewable energy and internet access and clean water for everyone. And I thought, what exactly is he talking about there? And it was a little difficult to find, actually, but when it comes to internet access, it turns out that Elon Musk has already thought about this. Of course, he has. And he is going to try to launch over 4,000 satellites into space that is then going to offer internet access, free internet access to everybody in the world. Right now, the way that we get internet access, now I'm not a science guy. By any means. So I don't know exactly what the infrastructure is that gives us internet. It's just like lines that are, I think, underground. And there's, like I said, I don't know exactly. I just know that what the reports are is that they're going to be rendered obsolete in the next, not even obsolete, but unusable because of climate change within the next 10 to 15 years. That water rising and temperatures rising, that things are going to melt and be buried, and it's not going to be good for internet access around the world. So the fix would be to have like a Skynet, right? Like internet in the sky. So the Sky-Fi, I think is what they're calling it. So this would allow for everybody in the world to get internet access, and it's through satellites, little satellites that would be launched. Elon Musk says he's going to be launching over 4,000 between now and 2024, 2025, and that would give everybody free internet access. And that would also address climate change, because when these companies want to go in and install internet, you know, it's disruptive and it's going to be useless anyway in the next few years if temperatures keep rising and water levels keep rising. Secondly, when he's talking about water for everybody in the world, he's talking about desalinizing salt water using solar-powered pumps, and a process that they're already using, but it needs to be done on an industrialized scale, and that would be able to give everybody in the world fresh, clean water, which is the most important resource completely. So that's what he's talking about there. And then, of course, energy, electricity for everybody would be done through solar and renewable means. There's a few ways to do that. Germany, for example, is already using, I believe 30% of Germany is already using their electricity is coming from renewable sources. And they're on track to have 50% of their electricity coming from renewable sources within the next 10 years. So they're moving fast when it comes to that. And I think that's what Bill Nye the Science Guy is talking about, is getting that infrastructure in place and investing in that infrastructure in order to give everybody these three really essential things: fresh, clean water for free, electricity for free, and internet access for free. or if you don't like the word free, it would be paid for by our governments collectively, taxpayer dollars that would go towards giving us all of these services. Our money's got to go somewhere, guys. We should make it go towards things that are actually helpful and good for us. Okay, so Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, this was her answer to Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Bill. This is amazing. So I think one of the keys to dismantling fear is dismantling a zero-sum mentality. So that, I think, is a really important part of dismantling fear. So what does that mean? It means the rejection outright of the logic that says someone else's gain necessitates my loss, and that my gain must necessitate someone else's loss, that my gain must come at the cost of another person. We are increasing our capacities for productivity. And so we can give without a take, is where we're going through technologically. And when we say, this idea of how you're going to pay for it, this idea that there is a person that pays for it, instead of, we're viewing progress as a cost instead of as an investment. And investments, the difference between a cost and an investment is that an investment yields returns. And when we choose to invest in our systems, we are choosing to create wealth. We are choosing to create wealth, and when we all invest in them, then the wealth is for all of us too.
Okay, so she's absolutely right that this would be an investment. So as I mentioned before, using our taxpayer dollars to invest in all of the things that we need to do in order to combat climate change, in building infrastructure for renewable energy, building whatever it takes, the infrastructure to give everybody clean water and free internet and, all of these various things. All of that is absolutely an investment. It's not we're going to spend this, we're going to pay for it, and then that's it. Nothing is given us back in return. That is a narrative that is this whole, somebody, we're going to just pay for it, and then that's going to be it, and it's just going to be free. No investor thinks like this. Rich people already know this. This is the mentality of the average American, and rich people are banking on the fact that the average American doesn't understand investments. That the average American doesn't understand you've got to spend money to make money. Every rich person knows this. Every rich person knows this. You have to spend money to make money. And what they're banking on is that the average person doesn't really know this. And instead, they view spending money as just, you're spending money and then that's that, and you've wasted it, and now what? And here we are, we're broke. That's the mentality of a poor person. That's the mentality of somebody who doesn't understand that investment makes you money. So the problem with the reason why they're banking on this, the reason why there's a group of people out there who do not want you, the average American, to know that, yes, spending this money on these renewable energy sources, spending this money on fresh water, spending this money on internet access is actually an investment. They don't want you to know that because the people who currently are making a ton of money wouldn't anymore. It wouldn't be an investment for them. They would suffer a huge loss. The rest of us would win and they would lose. And there are some industries that would win, but it wouldn't be the ones that are currently winning. So, for example, ExxonMobil, Chevron, Shell, you've got ConocoPhillips, Peabody Energy, Consol Energy, Arc Coal. I mean, these are companies that are either based in America or have North American, an affiliate here in North America. They absolutely do not want to see their entire industry collapse and new industries come forward, and those new industries win while they lose. That's not what they want. So they're trying to build this narrative of this is just going to cost people money and this is way too much and look at the dollar amount on it, when they know, because what rich people do on a regular basis is they're investing in small companies all the time. You've got a rich billionaire and he's walking around with a ton of money. He's going to be putting millions of dollars into various little startups, hoping that one of them will yield a return on that investment. So they know that they have to spend money, millions of dollars, in order to potentially make millions of dollars back. The problem is, like I said, with these companies is they wouldn't be the winners. Now, they could have been. The writing was on the wall. They ignored it. In fact, there is this great article. This was from Ask a Scientist. This was a Union of Concerned Scientists. And this one is called, Why Haven't Fossil Fuel Companies Adjusted Their Business Models? This was from their segment, Ask a Scientist, in December of 2016. And here's the question. They says, your report says those large oil companies knew that an alternative path forward was available and that they could have adjusted their business models. It defies logic that they wouldn't adjust their business models. Why in the world wouldn't they? So, well, here's why they wouldn't. This was the answer here. If the companies in our report were smart, they would have reinvented themselves. They should have seen the writing on the wall, changing economies, a need to address climate change, and the need to transition to renewable energy sources. Instead, they bet that governments would be slow to act, and they have done all that they can to make sure that would be the case. Much in the same way the tobacco industry staved off stronger regulations for decades. That's exactly what's going on. These big companies are just banking on slow government, and they're spending money, big lobby money, in order to stave this off. So it says here, history provides examples of success and failure. Back in the mid-1800s, whaling, which provided oil for the lamps that lighted much of the Western world, was the fifth largest industry in the United States. By the second half of that century, whale oil was replaced by kerosene, which in turn was rendered obsolete by the electric light. The whaling industry collapsed. By contrast, the Fisher brothers, who manufactured horse-drawn carriages at the turn of the 20th century, adapted to the changing times. Realizing that their future was tied to the fledgling auto industry, they redesigned their product to handle the stresses and strains of the new technology. They morphed into the fabulously successful Fisher Body Company, which eventually became a division of General Motors. The fossil fuel industry is at a similar crossroads today, and at least two of the companies in the UCS survey, BP and Chevron, ventured into the renewable energy business a decade ago. When they did not realize quick profits, however, they sold off their holdings. Others, notably ExxonMobil, flatly rejected the idea of diversifying into renewables because, as the oil giant's CEO Rex Tillerson told his shareholders, quote, "We choose not to lose money on purpose," unquote. Given that scientists project that energy companies worldwide will have to leave 60 to 80% of their reserves in the ground to ensure average temperatures do not rise more than 2 degrees Celsius, that's short-sighted thinking at best, especially when governments around the world are finally getting serious about curbing global warming emissions. In any case, maximizing quarterly profits at all costs to placate Wall Street stifles innovation. When Toyota first introduced the Prius, the company lost money on every one it sold. Now it dominates the hybrid market because it was willing to invest in a long-term strategy. The oil and gas companies we surveyed had a choice, and by and large, they chose to dig in deeper, further entrenching themselves into fossil fuel dependency when they could have morphed into low-carbon and carbon-free energy companies and diversified their portfolios. This was an absolute failure of the fossil fuel industry, and now they're making us pay for it. And the way that they're doing it is through this narrative of saying, oh my gosh, this would be too expensive, and how would this possibly happen? And oh no, we just can't do it. We can't do it. It's just going to cost us too much money. Trillions and trillions of dollars. It's outrageous. It's not going to work. It's a cost. They know full well that when their industries die and renewable industries come forward, that there will still be a lot of money to be made from those new companies. I mean, think about it. To convert every building in America to rely on renewable sources rather than fossil fuels is a huge industry. That is a huge industry. The cost is upfront investment. It's what Toyota did when they developed the Prius. It's what Amazon's been doing for a decade, over a decade. Amazon just barely started turning a profit last year. That was the first time Amazon turned a profit. Imagine that. It costs money. It costs billions and billions. And in something like this, trillions of dollars to create something magnificent. But once you create it, the payoff is huge. That's the point. The payoff is huge. And what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is talking about is we, the people, would get to share in that payoff. That is the Green New Deal. It is not about these big, huge companies being able to make huge amounts of money off the backs of people and not share it and not and they take and they don't give back. Instead, they just continue to take. Now they're depleting our most precious, most natural resources, our clean air and our clean water, and all for the sake of making a buck. When the same buck could be made just differently and maybe by different groups of people, because these people were slow to the game. If these people had actually morphed their businesses and changed their business models, they too could be reaping in the benefits. They too would be advocating for this reward. In fact, they'd be advocating hard for it. They'd be saying, oh my gosh, we need to address climate change. We need to do it now. And they'd be advocating for that because they would have built the technology and they would have built the infrastructure for their companies to thrive in this new changing economy. And they would be advocating for the government to get everybody moving in that direction faster. But instead, they decided to ignore the reality, to ignore science that they absolutely knew. And their industries deserve to fail because of it. They deserve to fail. Because that's capitalism, right? Everybody says, oh, this is all socialism. AOC, she's a big old socialist. But actually, what's ironic about it all is that capitalism is, if you don't change with the economy, if you don't change with the demand, you die. And you deserve to die if you don't change. You deserve to have your company go under if you failed to read the writing on the wall. So this will be an absolute investment in our people to have, even giving people clean water and internet access and electricity, that brings wealth to everybody, because then you get people that maybe the genius that is the next Albert Einstein, instead of dying from some disease from not having access to clean water, and instead of staying uneducated without access to the internet and without the ability to keep the lights on in order to study or power the internet, that genius would maybe be never discovered. But maybe with all of these great, with basic things really, this genius could be discovered and more wealth could be created. I mean, it's obvious. It's obvious. So great to see Bill Nye the Science Guy and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez there at South by Southwest. And yes, let's begin investing in the American people, in the people of the world.